All right. Welcome, community. This is Robbie coming at it again, round two of mindful parenting because, the first video did not save on Facebook. It only saved about a minute, almost 2 minutes. But yeah, I really wanted to get this information out so you could understand it, see it for yourself, really be able to contemplate it and be with it, and be able to pause it and digest it fully. So I am going to save it on YouTube platform, so you'll be able to see it for as long as you want and really understand it. And two, if you want me to email it to you, I'd be happy to do that as well. So let's get started. Mindful parenting. What is mindful parenting? Well, let's start on the mindfulness right now, right? So close your eyes. And what are you feeling right now in your body when you see this topic, when you hear my voice, when you think of yourself as a parent? What is coming up for you? Where are you feeling it in your body? Do you feel stress? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel love, nurture? Maybe a little anger and resentment. Doesn't matter what you're feeling. None of that's bad, but it's there to serve as an awareness, to let you really know that, hey, there's something there to be seen. And be with it. Don't try to erase it. Don't try to push it away, but don't really try to overanalyze it, but just be with it and sit with it. So, yeah, you can open up your eyes now. And that is the first stage, or basically you just were being mindful. You were tuning into yourself, and you just gained a first-hand experience of what it is to be mindful, to really understand yourself fully and how you show up in this moment. So if I have to be honest, I am nervous right now. I mentioned that earlier in my previous video, but each time that I present this, I'm nervous. But there's also, it's also very similar to excitement, because I want to get this out for you guys. I want to really make it hit home, because, man, it's so important, and it's packed full of just a lot of information really to help you better understand yourself. So how do we parent, guys? How does that work? Again, I'm not a parent, but things that I've heard from other people and from my own parents growing up, there's no rule book or Bible. There's what style do we use, guys? Where have you learned how to be a parent? What are the do's and the don'ts, the rights and the wrongs? Do we really ever get anything right? It goes to the extreme of, am I even going to hell if I get this wrong? What if I fail? Will I raise a decent human being? And one of the most hardest ones to realize is the mirror. What if they turn out to be just like me? And they take on some of the experiences that I had growing up, or they're heartbroken at one point, or they go through a major illness, or they suffer through a major tragedy of some sort. So this is difficult, because there's not a one size fits all for anything. In fact, society tries to make it a one size fits all, but it's just not true. We're all different. Every child is unique. Just because you parent one child one way doesn't mean you parent another child that same way, because they're a different person. They're bringing a different perspective, different personality to the table. So I came up with this parenting equation to really tap into what it's like to be mindful, and how to create that how to create that environment. And really, to do that, it breaks down to mindful self. So really tuning into yourself first, understanding who you are as a person, what your reactions are, what your triggers are, and doing that well before you even bring in another person, another spouse, a partner of some sort. Because, you bring a trauma, or something that you haven't dealt with to the table with a spouse, you're probably attracting a spouse that has a similar trauma. So it's like trauma. You're basically attracting another trauma. So how does that carry out? Well, it eventually then will carry out to, if you guys have children together, that the child will experience your trauma through what you're going through your reactions, through your reactivity to certain situations. And they will, as you'll see here in the next slide, they'll kind of act out that trauma in their own body. But I want to back up a little bit because we never really defined mindfulness. What is mindfulness? It's the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we're doing. It's not being overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. So, wow, a few things stick out there. Reactive or overly reactive, right? And overwhelmed. Those are two things that, man, those are common, right, among being a parent, in families, in certain situations. Like, isn't that just something that's a normal thing with being a parent? Aren't we always going to be overwhelmed? You could say that, right? But doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Do we have some way of controlling that or minimizing it to where it's not so, where it's not occurring so frequently? So a couple practices here would be to create a whole one. So to create the whole, which is mindful parenting, one must work with and include each part. So you got to stay present. There's an action statement. We have to really understand ourselves, our patterns, what's going on with us, and then seek balance. Seek to find balance with that. When we do understand this, what are we doing with it? Are we going to go from one extreme to another? How do we land just in the middle? And that's a personal practice. That's something that takes time. You really can't rush this process. And seeking balance, again, will look different for everybody. So we'll learn more about that in a little bit, but let's jump to attachment styles. So I'm going to go to the role of the adult, and then we'll see what the child will develop based on the adult. So if the adult has a very secure attachment themselves, they're free, they're autonomous, they're able to do themselves. There's a fine balance between the self and others, and they're very secure in themselves and aren't codependent on somebody. Well, you're going to have a child that's securely attached, and this child's going to be content, they're going to be engaged, and they're going to be really on task with things. They're going to feel very safe in this world. What about when you move down to the next one, dismissing? An adult that's dismissing certain things, really not paying attention, and really not tuning in to what the child is trying to display, what they're seeking, what they're really asking for, what's really behind that. Really paying attention to body language. And if if an adult is not paying attention to those things, well, the child is going to be avoidantly attached. They're going to avoid that situation because it's just, hey, they're dismissing. Why even try? Why does it matter? And they're going to be withdrawn, they're going to be quiet, and they're going to be anxious. So that's something that really comes into play during this attachment style. So next we're going to move to preoccupied. And preoccupied, what does that mean to be preoccupied? Well, let's say dad's working on his computer. He's in his office, child comes in, he's on the phone while he's typing, and, there's multiple things going on, and the child's really wanting attention then, and the dad's like, I'll be right out in a second, we'll go outside and play, and, we'll play baseball just like you want. But the dad never makes it out, 10 minutes goes by, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and wow. The child starts getting ambivalently attached. They're like, does it even matter? Does it even matter? Do they even care about me? And those are some really big things to think as a child, because that's the last thing we want for our adult caregivers, is to be that way. And what does this child end up like? They're anxious. They're not focused. They're insecure, and they're asking a lot of questions. And I want to stop and posit this one, because what are most children today in schools when they're seen as anxious and not focused, maybe insecure, what is generally going on with this child? What are the teachers doing? What are they suggesting to the parents? Generally, this is where children are suggested by the teachers to go on certain ADHD medication. You know, they need to focus. They're not able to focus. But what the teachers don't recognize is the things that are going on with the family dynamics at home and how that's playing out and the needs that are not being met. And instead, it's just like, hey, well, you know, they need this medicine so they can be normal, like every other child in this classroom. They need to be like them. And again, this is where we try to make, as society, everybody fit into a certain scenario, to a certain equation, to be a certain person, when in fact there's an individual aspect that's really missing out here. This child is really needing attention, is really needing that connection with their caregiver, with their adult, and they're not getting that. And you know, maybe this is another opportunity in school where the teacher can kind of help with that. But instead, sometimes it's often ignored and pushed to the doctor to handle. And again, it just perpetuates the cycle. So yeah, that's kind of a sad reality of a lot of that. And that's why we're learning about this stuff. That's why we're gaining knowledge and awareness ourselves, so you know these cycles don't continue. Last one here is for the adult to be unresolved trauma or loss. So the adult has unresolved trauma, they haven't dealt with it. Again, we're going back to the self, and they experience a loss, or they're disorganized. So you're going to have a child that's very disorganizedly attached. They're going to be angry. They're going to be depressed. They're not going to be following directions. They've got a short fuse. They're difficulty. These are the children that are sent out of the classroom. I can recall about 3 or 4 that were always sent out. They were always punished. Of course, back when I was in elementary, they were spanked. And they were constantly causing trouble. But you know, they were having these sensations and these feelings inside of themselves similar to their adult caregivers. And it was playing out in the child themselves. And again, they're just wanting that secure attachment, but they're not sure what's going on. And again, they're being punished for something that they don't even recognize is going on inside of them. It's playing out. It's automatic. So yeah, these are really cool to tune into. And a lot of these the attachment styles, I got these from Daniel Siegel, and he's basically an attachment expert and has several books on Amazon and a lot of work throughout his time that's online that you guys can look at and explore further. But he says the attunement between two people, so the attunement, really tuning into each other, really connecting, is the most important experience of joy any of us can have. How profound is that? So that connection is so important. So what is attachment, guys? Let's move to that real quick. It's an inborn system in the brain that evolves in ways that influence and organize the motivational, the emotional, the memory processes with respect to significant caregiving figures. The attachment system motivates the infant to seek proximity to parents and other caregivers and to establish communication with them. So the adult doesn't necessarily have to be a parent, because if the child is with somebody like grandma or grandpa or a friend, somebody that's a caregiver, this is very important. This is important that they have these attachment styles with that caregiver. And, back up. It's important that they have that secure attachment with that caregiver, because we really don't want any of those other ones. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be a parent. That's the one thing to note there. And one other thing too, it doesn't have to be from both parents. As long as they have one secure attachment, it's been shown in studies that children can grow up being content and engage on task. You know, those characteristics of a secure attachment. So it just takes one adult that's really caring, that's really nurturing, that's there for the child when they need them. So how do we build secure attachment, guys? The thought here is to occur when children have consistent, emotionally attuned, and contingent communication with a parent or caregiver. So consistent, emotionally attuned, and contingent communication. So really focusing in and honing in on the child and spending that time with them, connecting with them, not just hearing what they're saying while doing something else, but really tuned into them emotionally, understanding what's really going on, because sometimes words don't captivate everything. We could say something, but we really don't mean it. And they miss, if they are not tuned into the body language, they can miss out on, they could miss out on something that's really not being shown. They're saying one thing but displaying another, but how would they know that if they're not there presently with the child? So the way a young child is dependent on an older individual is to develop the 4 S's. So remember these 4 S's. To be seen, to be safe, to be soothed, and to really feel secure. Studies suggest that security influences both the neural connections, so things going on in our brain, and the epigenetic regulatory molecules, so that's our genes and our ability to change our environment and change our thoughts, our mind, our basically our ability to not develop things that our parents did or our relatives did. So it's the ability to change our environment and change our health. So an epigenetic regulatory molecules in the brain that supports behavior, resilience, and relational well-being. So, wow. Okay, here we go right here. So, I want to touch on Mary Main, because she created this adult attachment interview protocol with her colleagues in 1985, and it's a 20 open-ended question protocol here, or interview, that the parents take themselves, right? And so let's say mom's taking this, and it's asking her questions about her childhood. How was her family situation, her dynamics? Did they move a lot? What was going on? Whose connection did you vow for the most? Did you want mom's? Did you want dad's? What kind of feelings did you have towards mom? What kind of feelings did you have towards dad? And it really digs into the parents' past. And so they can really help understand, okay, well, oh yeah, so maybe there was a little codependency here for my mom because of this, and I see that this is carrying out with my child. So it's really important to take this. This is life-changing. This could really help the way you see yourself, become aware, and ultimately become a better person and a better parent. So Mary Main's 5 principles, she states, the earliest attachments are usually formed by the age of 7 months. 7 months. And nearly all infants become attached. Every single one. Attachments are formed to only a few persons. There's a select few, right? Mom, dad, maybe a relative, or I guess a grandparent. The selective attachments appear to be derived from social interactions with the attachment figures, and the lead to specific organizational changes in an infant's behavior and brain function. So that leads to big changes there. And yeah, so what is your earliest memory of attachment for yourself? Kind of think about that for a second. What was it? So, diving in some more here, Main's goal when creating this attachment protocol was to surprise the unconscious into revealing itself. Because what this is basically a lot of the things that we're doing as parents, we've learned from our parents, who learned from their parents. And things are being passed down. We also can learn it from media, from friends, different other situations. But we're learning that, we're taking it on, we're making it part of ourselves. But a lot of it is automatic. A lot of it just comes into it, and the child shows up real quick, and next thing we know, it's carrying out the same way. Nothing's really being done. So a lot of the same patterns, a lot of the same traumas, a lot of the same fears and anxieties still exist in this parenting, because it was never really dealt with. It was never really focused on, and there's no awareness brought to it. So that's huge. So the unconscious is basically the automatic part that's going on in yourself. So say that when you pull out of the driveway for work in the morning, you're driving to work, you're taking the same route, it becomes automatic, it becomes unconscious because your body has done it so many times, it's allowing you space to do something else. And that's why we feel a need to listen to music, or we feel a need to listen to a podcast, because the driving part just gets boring. But yeah, so you can see how just automatic we get as human beings. And in Bruce Lipton's Biology Beliefs, he states that we're about 95% automatic in our lives and only 5% conscious. So that's a huge thing there that's going on, that we're not really tuned into the creative conscious self, but we're carrying out actions and things that are automatic from our unconscious, and just kind of living life almost like a factory. And that's kind of scary to think about. So let's dive into the anatomy. So next is the right brain versus the left brain. And why is this important? What's the deal with the right brain and left brain? Well, it's important to know what's going on each side and what's being influenced, so we really can bring more awareness to ourselves and really understand which side we're using when we talk a certain way and communicate. So the right brain, as you can see here, is a sustained, broad, open, vigilant. It's alert. It's the one that's really able to connect and really be able to connect to the feelings, connect to that the limbic part of the brain, and really be able to be at that same emotional state as whoever you're communicating with. So you can see how important that is to be at the right side of times. Now the left side has its place too. It's the thing that's solving problems. It's the things that's fixing. It's narrowly focused, attention to detail, and it's wanting to basically fix something. And how many of us, when a child comes to us, or somebody, maybe it's our spouse or a friend, and they come to us with a problem, our first reaction is to, hey, well, I've got this friend here that can help you with this, or I know this person that can do that, and we want to fix the situation. We want to fix, and really make it better, which isn't a bad thing. I think it has its place, but we're missing out on that connection, that attunement with their emotional state, and we're not able to ever connect with it, and we're just going straight to that left brain fixer, and it becomes almost robotic. So how can we change that? And a part of that is becoming aware of this, understanding these sides of the brain. And if you want to dive into this deeper, there's a YouTube video by Ian McGilchrist. This is where one of the slides from his presentation. It's about 8 minutes, and it dives into it even further. So now we're going to go on to being and doing. So this ties in with the brain. So which picture here that you're seeing is being, and which one's doing? Sure, you guessed this right. So the left one is obviously doing, and the right one's being. So you can see here, mom on the left, that's doing. She is so busy. Probably she has a pizza order, and she's like, oh my gosh, they got it wrong. They forgot the mushrooms. They forgot the pepperoni. And the kids are going nuts because they're seeing what mom's doing and how she's reacting. And during this moment, they're expressing something, and she's not able to really tune into them because she's busy dealing with this phone problem, right? And she didn't stop to connect. So the children don't really feel seen. They don't feel heard. And this will play out later on. And to the right here, you've got this connection, this unity, this understanding. These people, this family right here, they feel like one because they're all together right now. There's really no feeling of separation at this time. They feel like they're all one, they're together, and they're emotionally attuned. And this really helps kids go inward when they get this attention, when they feel heard, when they are able to connect and they don't feel like dad's and mom's attention are always taken away from them. They're there. They're supported. So what can mom do here to basically stop this pattern in its tracks? What is an activity that she could do in this moment while she's on the phone with this pizza guy? Well, she could be like, okay, hey John, I'm really sorry right now. I'm gonna have to go. I need to check in with my kids, see if I get this, make sure I get all this right, and then I'll call you right back to finish this order. Thank you. So, really putting it on pause and not just trying to get the task done, but stopping it in the moment and sitting down with these children and be like, hey, what's going on? How can I be with you guys right now? Like, what do I need to get right? What am I missing here? And really checking in with them and seeing them as a person they are, not really seeing them less than you, but really checking in with them and being with them kind of like two adults would do in a healthy relationship. So which one here is the right hemisphere? So again, the right hemisphere is connection, really being emotionally tuned. So that's going to be on the right side, the right pitcher. The left hemisphere is going to be on the left pitcher. And it's the one that's doing, task-oriented. So connection. Why is connection so important? Because we've been talking a lot about connection, especially with the being versus the doing. Why is it important to connect? Well, parents, so let's go to a situation where at the swimming pool, parents are wanting to just throw their kids in the deep end, make them swim, teach them how to swim. They can just do it. That's how I learned, right? So then they just need to be thrown in and they'll learn. They'll figure out their way. What kind of boundaries do you feel like that is? Do you feel like that's boundaries too loose or boundaries too tight? It's probably boundaries too loose. They kind of fend for themselves. They do their own thing. They come and go, like, they'll figure it out. And is that a bad thing? To an extreme, yes. But that could be a good thing too, a good aspect. But it's still not balanced. It's still not in the middle. So what about boundaries too tight? Well, this is where either the son or daughter are crying before going to the pool, and they're like, man, I really don't want to go. I'm so scared to go in, and I don't know what other people are going to think about me. They're going to laugh, and I just don't feel like I want to go to this pool. Maybe another day. They're delaying, and they're probably doing that over and over and over. And the parent is like, again, this is boundaries too tight. The parent is saying, okay, Johnny, or okay, Sarah, we don't have to go. We'll just watch a movie here, and I'm sorry that you're feeling bad. We'll stay here, and we don't have to worry about going. Okay, and it's really it's preventing them from ever growing, from ever really getting out to see if that's it. Because is it really the pull, or is it other things going on? Do they not feel securely attached enough to be able to go and try it out? So humans value connection, but they really make time for it. And it's crucial to take the time to connect, especially when a child is reaching out to you. If a child is reaching out and you're not ever connecting, there's all these missed opportunities to create that secure attachment, but instead the child is moving to one of those other forms of attachment, and they're feeling left out and they're not feeling connected to their caregivers. So Siegel breaks this down. He says, the way we should connect with our children and the way we should treat these situations are to first connect before redirect, and then we have to name it to tame it. So what does that look like? So to connect and redirect, well, let's say here, I'm crying out. Let's go back to the pool situation. I'm crying out. I don't want to go to the pool. I don't want people to laugh at me because I don't feel like I can swim well. Well, mom could be like, Sarah, I really see that you're sad right now, and I sense how scared you are in going to the pool. I imagine that must be really scary for you to be experiencing that, and to to go to the pool and have the courage to be able to swim. So right there was the connection. She tapped into the emotional part of the brain and stopped and said, hey, I really feel what you're feeling. And allowed them to feel it and was feeling it with them. So you can see how, wow, that would be profound, like to really have a parent that understands me. And then name it to tame it. I named the feeling, feeling scared to go to the pool. And that's huge, because that's naming the feeling. And when you name something, it gets it out, and it really diffuses the entire issue to begin with, and it makes it less intimidating, less daunting. So here's a little experiential you can do with your child, or you can do with a spouse or partner. So a child, you can state one person's the child, one person's the parent, and the child's going to state a problem they're dealing with or something that's challenging, and the parent can brush it off at first, and they can use a left hemisphere approach with your child. And what is that again? So left hemisphere is wanting to go straight to the fix it, straight to the problem solving. So try that out. And then how do you feel, both child and parent, after this exercise? How do you feel that kind of communication style went? Round 2, use a more right hemisphere approach in dealing with it. Practice that connect before redirect, and then naming it to tame it, using that right side of the brain, and really see how that feels for you, child and parent, after this type of exercise. Really see what this communication style does for the connection between you both in general. So we're ending here, guys. We're coming to a closure, and want to recap on mindfulness parenting. Mindfulness is at the heart of nurturing relationships. When we are mindful, we live in the present moment, and we are aware of our own thoughts, our own feelings, and we're open to those of our children. The ability to stay present with clarity within ourselves allows us to be fully present with others and to respect each person's individual experience. No two people see things in exactly the same way. Mindfulness gives respect to the individuality of each person's unique mind. Whew. Man, this one gets me every time, because it's so important for our children to be seen as individual people, and not just something, not a part of the whole, not part of like everyone else. Everyone else is doing this, so why can't you do it? Everyone else seems to have this together. Why are you feeling this way? When we're made to feel like we've got to conform and not be ourselves, we kill the creativity, we kill our passions, we kill our dreams. So important. So lastly, let's touch on something that's a little bit more I guess raw and out there. This is coming straight from parents, straight from caregivers, and this is one word or a sentence, what it's like being a parent. And I reached out to people on Facebook and Instagram, and this is what we got back. So parents are saying that, wow, it's everything. Wearing your heart outside your body, it's always a lifetime of commitment. It's acceptance. It's learning, it's growing, it's journey. It makes you stronger and weaker simultaneously, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I had to pull that one from Russell Brand because it was so good. It's fulfilling and exhausting at the same time, and it gets us, and get that out of your mouth. So you can see a lot of this too. It seems like it's one of those things, it's everything, but it's also like, it's frustrating. It's push, it's pull, it's kind of like too extreme. So that's what it's like to be human in general. We have our good days, we have our bad days. We get our promotion, we get laid off, we get into one relationship and it fails, but we get into another. So there's just so many different things where we're all constantly this back and forth, and it's a dance. And we're constantly dancing and being the best that we can. So I really appreciate all the parents that reached out. I appreciate your hard work and what you're doing now, and the fact that you're taking that stance to be a parent and to really, give it your all. I feel like that says a lot about you. And two, to tune in to this, to listen, to want to better yourself as a parent, and to be really the best you can, and understand yourself further, and understand how your relationships are and your parenting. I mean, that's huge. That is so important. So I just want to thank you for that. The fact that you're doing something to change, to bring more awareness to yourself, that's powerful. So thank you. And I encourage you to continue doing that. Encourage you to continue further. Daniel Siegel is an amazing person to really tune into parenting styles, especially attachment. So that's a good place to start. And yeah, encourage you to do research and keep looking up and see what works for you. Because remember, every person is an individual and has an individual need, an individual thing that you're trying to help them be with, so they're creative. So there's no one size fits all. Thank you.